The pay gap that's said to unfairly discriminate against women does not exist, but there are many people that will tell you it does. Harriet Harman, the UK's Minister for Women, regularly lies about the pay gap.
Men who work full-time still earn 40% more per hour than women who work part-time.
And in his presidential campaign, John Kerry also lied about the pay gap.
We also need to hold on to equal pay. Women work for 76 cents on the dollar for the same work that men do. That's not right in America.
I think it's always going to be a big problem because, apart from anything else, women mostly have to work part-time. I mean, let's be realistic about what women can put into the workforce. Those women that want to have children and want to at least be at home with their children some of the time will never be able to have the earning capacity. Where you look at single women and married men, they do work at parity, they do get paid equally. But it's where women are having children.
The reason that Kerry lied is for the same reason that Harman lies. It's for the female vote.
Traditionally, women lean more towards Democratic candidates by about 10%. But last month's polls showed that lead was slipping.
Tell women they're paid less than men for doing the same work, and they'll vote for you. It doesn't matter if it's true or not.
The female vote tends to be the moving vote. When you go back past previous elections, the male vote tends to stay fairly static. The female vote is the one that shifts. So if they can shift that female vote into their camp, then it means giving them whatever it is they need to give them to keep them there, then that's what they'll do. It's only politics.
What the pay gap actually describes is a difference in the choices that men and women make, and also their different abilities.
Well, women earn less because they choose easier jobs, is what it boils down to. Should a man who can carry 2 bricks in his wheelbarrow be paid the same as a woman who can only carry 1 brick? Now, what's the answer to that question? You know, if a man can carry 2 bricks, then during the course of the day he will do twice as much work as the woman who can only carry 1 brick. Therefore, the man might argue, well, I should be paid twice as much as the woman. The woman will say, no, that's not fair because I'm not physically able to carry 2 bricks, and after all, I've done the same amount of work. My point is that if the man was to be paid twice as much as the woman would object, and she would have some justification for making that objection. On the other hand, if they were both paid the same amount, the woman would be happy, but the man is then entitled to object, saying, I'm doing twice the amount of work. My point is, there is no solution. There is no amount of money where people wouldn't say, that's not fair. It's a question of balance. But there's nowhere to put the balance. There's nowhere to draw the line, which would be agreed upon by everyone.
My wife, if you were to put us both out to work again now, I would probably look for work that was probably fairly demanding. I'd probably look for project work where you get stuck in, and I would earn a lot of money. My wife would be very happy to just get herself a little quiet office job or work down in one of those shops down there, because that's what will keep her happy. So therefore, I would always end up earning probably twice what my wife ever earned. My younger brother, he works in the city. He's on about 100,000 a year because he likes that type of world. His wife is a teacher, so she's on 30,000. He's on 100,000. Is that discrimination? No. His daughter thought, I'm going to work in the city like Dad. So she went up the city. She hated it. So she's out. She's teaching like Mum.
What aggravates me is that a man who works in a sewer or does a more difficult job will get paid more money, hopefully, than a woman who does an easy and flexible job. And the problem arises when the woman then starts complaining, or women then start complaining, that because they've chosen the easier jobs and are getting paid less, that it isn't fair in some way. For example, I think something like 80–90% of the degrees in engineering go to men, whereas women tend to choose the more liberal studies. Well, the consequence is that men end up with higher paying jobs because they're doing jobs that are in greater demand and happen to pay more. Women could also do those jobs, but they choose not to do so. And yet they're forever complaining that they get paid less than men, but it is their choices that has resulted in that.
An illustration of the choices that people make is when Canada tried to introduce comparable worth into all government jobs in the 1990s. Feminists complained that male construction workers were being paid a lot more than female office cleaners, but these jobs were classed by the Canadian government as being the same level of manual labour, and so they set a policy for all government contracts that cleaners should be paid the same as construction workers. What happened? Men saw that they could get the same money cleaning an office as they could breaking their backs in the streets in all weathers, and so they applied to become cleaners. In their hundreds. Women didn't become construction workers, however, because they didn't want to and couldn't do the work if they did.
If women don't want to be working sort of waist deep in mud or getting their nails broken by bricks and things like that, why should they go into the construction industry?
As a result, there was suddenly a huge shortage of construction workers and a huge surplus of office cleaners. Therefore, due to basic market forces, the salaries for construction workers went up and the salaries for cleaners went down, and so men went back to construction. That plan to tackle the pay gap has been quietly shelved by Canada. Men tend to earn more than women for various reasons, all painfully obvious when you stop to think about it.
Workers putting grueling 12-hour shifts for 2 weeks straight.
Women don't want to do that sort of job. They want nice jobs, easy jobs, pleasant jobs.
Every job here holds hidden dangers. Crushed hands, broken bones, and even death.
Even when men and women have the same job title, they don't necessarily do the same work.
Miss Villalba's pay in 2002 was around $500,000, at least 50% less than male colleagues doing the same work.
Men will typically work more intensively for more hours, do more overtime and make more of a sacrifice for the job.
I mean, I worked in manufacturing for years, so I used to have access to all the CBI reports on earnings in factories, and men always earned more than women. And I'm talking about after equal pay came in, not before that. And the reason they earned more than women because it was piecework. So what you produced, you got paid. And if you produced more, you got paid more. And the men always produced more than women. And that was a fact of life. And I remember one of my old aunties, I told her that, she went rabid. I didn't know, she was a lifelong feminist. You can't say that. I said, well, sorry, but it's fact. I said, it's not my thinking. I said, I only work on what I see, on facts. I said, and our facts that was throughout the whole company, whether it didn't matter whether it's cutting, closing or making departments, I said, men on piecework always work harder than women. It's just a fact, so that's why they earn more. So in the Minehead factory where nobody worked that hard, blokes used to earn 200 a week and the women earn 150 on average, because the men produce a third more than the women. If you put a bloke in the stitching room, it clears so many tickets of work a day, and the women are closed and they turn out less. And it was nothing to do with strength, it was just what effort you put into it.
As long as the obligations that men have in the world make them more motivated to earn more money, they're always going to choose the jobs that pay more. These jobs are generally harder, more dangerous and more unpleasant, but men will do them for the payment.
The risks are high, but so is the money. Salaries up to $100,000 for 6 months' work. They earn every penny.
Women don't have this pressure to earn, because to this day, society does not expect them to support a family.
To the extent that women are looking for high-status men, you'd expect men to be highly motivated to compete with one another for status, for example, whereas you wouldn't expect that same kind of motivation amongst women, because men aren't choosing women on that basis. They prefer men who have more status and resources than they do. Once upon a time, this was thought that the only reason women go for men with money is because, for various reasons, women don't have money of their own, so they were forced to. But it turns out that even when women are financially independent, they're still looking for males who have more money than they do. A man that loses the competition might end up with nothing or dead. A woman that loses the competition might end up with the beta male instead, or the delta or the epsilon. Or you expect men to be more competitive, more aggressive, more status-seeking, and also more risk-taking in pursuit of those kinds of prizes.
I see my children go to school and that sort of things, and that's important for me. Not just weekends, huh? So I'm 2 weeks off, but then after that I'm 2 weeks full-time daddy. and that's very nice.
That's why women get to choose easier work with less pay, because there's generally a man supporting her by doing harder work with higher pay. She is not oppressed, he is.
It was about 5 years ago, was a woman being interviewed about opportunities, and she said it wasn't fair because she said men don't have to make any decisions, they just go to work. She said, but it's not fair because women have to make their mind up on what they're going to do. She said, I don't know whether I should stay at home, go to work, or do it 50-50.
For many women, the main reason for opting out of work is that they realise a high-powered, high-stress career isn't the life that they want. Maternity provides an escape hatch that paternity doesn't. Another reason why men often get paid more than women in the same job is negotiating skills. Men will ask for higher payment and will bargain hard for it. Women are generally far less assertive when it comes to salary negotiations.
If you're looking at a capitalist society, you want fodder, which are the people who are going to do the work. As long as you employ women, you have a very malleable force, and you have a force that you can pay a lot less.
I was in a job where another guy that I started with was earning more than me in the same role. The reason he got more was because he did a better job of negotiating his salary at interview. I didn't look elsewhere for reasons why I received less, because I knew the fault lay with me. Women don't seem to understand this basic rule of employment. You'll be paid the least amount that you'll accept. In a market economy such as ours, if women could truly be paid less for doing the same work, companies would hire only women. Rather than a pay gap that exists and shouldn't, the real issue is a pay gap that should exist but doesn't. Women are often in the same job as men, but don't do the same job. They have the same job title and receive the same pay, but every man that works with her knows that it's not the same as working with a man. For example, in the army, women take substantially fewer risks than men, yet they're paid the same. That's why these shots are quite amusing. There are virtually no female soldiers that require body armour, let alone female journalists. This guy's probably wondering why she's wearing body armour so far from the fighting. Women are not required to undertake frontline roles, and they're restricted from going anywhere near the most dangerous areas. As a predictable result, men get killed and women don't. But there are no protests from female soldiers, or women in general, about this lack of equality. They seem quite okay with it. And yet these women expect the same opportunities for promotion as men. They expect to achieve the ranks that empower them to send men into combat, whilst they stay safe. And if they don't get promoted as often as men, of course they sue for sex discrimination.
In the army, women are not put in the front line, but they expect to be paid the same. I mean, I think that's outrageous, actually.
And yeah, they're not protesting about that, which is surprising, because I mean...
Why is it surprising?
What I mean is, it proves it's not a search for equality, it's a search for benefits.
No, it's not a search for... It's never been a search for equality.
Often claimed... Yeah, no, I don't think so either, but it has often been claimed that...
No.
For example, if you're a white man and want to become a policeman in London, you have very little chance of it, no matter how good your qualifications and aptitude. If you're a woman, however, the barest minimum educational and physical standards are required to walk into a job. This is to increase female representation in the police force. But why? What does a woman bring into the police force that's so special that it must be supported with affirmative action? Is she bringing a sixth sense? Can she leap tall buildings in a single bound?
Leave this place and do no harm.
Can she block bullets? Does she have superior interrogation skills?
You must now tell the truth. You are working with the Falcon.
No, she can't do any of these things. We're regularly sold the story that police women can cut it with the men, but the reality is very different. Police women are, in general, quite simply a burden and a danger to their male partners, and are relatively ineffectual as police officers. They cannot adequately defend themselves, their partners, or members of the public from physical danger. This is why you almost always see a man and a woman paired up on the beat. It's general police practice that a man accompanies a woman. He is there to protect her. There is no one there to protect him, and yet they're paid the same. What police women bring to the job is responsibility on police men to protect her, while simultaneously denying him the same protection. It's not as if policemen walk around feeling cursed that they're burdened with female colleagues. WPCs are undoubtedly very competent police officers in most respects. But policemen are very well aware that it's not the same as working with a man. The risks are very much one-sided. If there's a riot, where is she?
The police baton charge.
Well, there she is, trying to get a view of the action safely behind the men. When a door needs to be kicked down, what can she do? Well, she can hold his hat. These women are paid the same, but are only capable of a fraction of the work, and only take a fraction of the risk. The proof that police women do not do the same work as police men is in this simple fact. Of the 4,000 police officers that have been killed in the line of duty in the UK, 3,956 of them are men. 44 are women. Despite this privileged position in the UK police, police women with children sued for sex discrimination because they didn't receive bonuses that other police officers received. The bonuses were paid for working unsociable hours after midnight and over weekends, the times of highest crime. The mothers couldn't do it due to childcare responsibilities, and so didn't get the extra money. The women were basically demanding that they be paid bonuses while not actually doing the work for which bonuses were paid. You would think that this case would get nowhere, right? Wrong. These women won their case for discrimination because if the work in the daytime is just as hard and dangerous as the work after midnight, why are there bonuses for night work? If women really do perform work that's just as hard and dangerous as that carried out by the men, why are police men almost 100 times more likely to be killed on duty than police women? The tribunal also found that no, they don't. Policies that require individuals to work unsocial hours has a positive effect on reducing crime. Policies that require individuals to work unsocial hours has a positive effect on those officers, male and female, that are willing and able to do the work. They get bonuses. Policies that require individuals to work unsocial hours is actually beneficial to mothers because it enables them to be employed as police officers even though they're not able to work the full range of hours required to do the job. These women should be grateful that men are willing to do the hours that they can't. They shouldn't begrudge the bonus payments, and certainly shouldn't seek to receive them undeservingly. Without these policemen working late, what would we be left with? Police officers that couldn't work after dark, on weekends or during school holidays. Police officers who have to be home early to pay the babysitter. Police officers not on the beat, but on maternity leave. Motherhood is a choice, not an affliction. If a woman chooses to have children, then there are consequences to that choice, including consequences at work.
You're not becoming a fireman.
Firefighter, not fireman.
The term firefighter was coined to create the illusion that women are of the same standard and do the same job as men in the fire service. So, as far as you're concerned, there's no difference whatsoever between what a female firefighter can do and what a male firefighter can do?
Yeah, I think there is a difference. Again, it's that physical thing, isn't it? It's the physical thing. There are female firefighters that are not very strong at all, and the nature of the job may require you at some point to scale a ladder and to put someone on your shoulder and take them back down again. And there are female firefighters that won't be able to do that. You're there to rescue people. You're there to show that, you know, your skills and your strength and stamina are enough to cope with the job. Females are being let into the fire brigade to show statistics that the fire brigade, or the LFB, London Fire Brigade, are being equal ops. And yet they don't seem to perhaps really realise that on the front line you do need some strength. They've got strength tests, you know, for the entrance, but they're being constantly doctored so that they're not as hard as they used to be. Pretty much since they've been pushing for more females to come through, I feel the standards have dropped. And this is from what I've seen and from talking to guys in a job that have been there 20, 25 years. You do get rumours that, you know, they've lowered it because a lot of the female firefighters can't do level 12, or they struggle.
You're a woman, Julie.
Marge, women have been firefighters since...
What? London's burning?
Well...
And what good are they? My dad was right about this. Can women lift the 135? Can they break down a door? Can they carry a man down a ladder?
As long as there's fairness, you know, I don't have a problem with female firefighters. I think I believe that their strength and fitness should come up, not the tests come down to them. That's wrong. Would they do that in the SAS? Would they say to a female SAS, you know, you got to go and save this embassy dude that's being held by, you know, terrorists? But, you know, in your entrance exam, we won't require you to run quite as hard as the guys. And we'll bring the targets a little bit closer for you for target practice. There's a thing in the brigade where they have female open days. So they can try on the fire gear and have a little go around the rat run and see what it's like before they come and do it for the real selection process. They can talk to people and other firefighters and submerge themselves into it, which is good. It's great. Why not? You know, let's get people involved and let them. But there's no such day for male firefighters. There isn't an open day for male firefighters to go and do the same thing. It's all about equal ops. You know, I mean, they've got to do it. They've got to go both ways. You know, they've got to do it both ways. Otherwise, then it becomes, you know, not equal ops. Even it doesn't matter whether there are more guys than girls or more girls than guys.
A team of firemen is called a watch, and it has 6 men. If the watch has women in it, the job automatically becomes more difficult and dangerous for the remaining men, because while she's protected from the toughest and most dangerous tasks, the men aren't. Instead of a 1 in 6 chance of being selected for a dangerous task, it's 1 in 5 if there's 1 woman, or 1 in 4 if there are 2 women in the watch, and so on. I would pity the only man in a watch full of women. The consequences for firemen, due to the presence of incapable women, are quite simply life-threatening.
On the call slip, it might just say fire at number 32 Belmont Road or whatever. You don't know what the hell is going on until you turn up to that place. And if you're the first appliance there, and you've got the driver, the officer in charge at the front, and 4 girls at the back, female firefighters, and there's a guy on the 1st or 2nd floor that is in desperate trouble, and he's got flames licking up his arse, and he needs to come out of that window. There's no other way from it to escape. Those 4 female firefighters are going to be well trained. They're going to know what to do, but there's a 100-kilo ladder they need to get off the back of the appliance. They need to position it over a garden wall that could be 3-4 foot, maybe 5 foot high, and one of them's going to have to go up there and assist, or perhaps even carry a guy down. If it's an adult that's, you know, that weighs quite a lot, and those 4 females are saying, well, I can't get up that ladder, I won't be able to do that. What happens to that guy? You know, maybe the officer in charge is able to do it, or the driver, but he's not in his fire gear when he turns up. He's in his work gear. So he has to get his fire gear on and then perhaps climb the ladder. It's physics.
This is why the terms firefighter and police officer and soldier are all fallacies when applied to women. Women do not do the same job because they're not capable of doing the same job. Instead, men take up the slack created by inadequate women and pay the price with injury and death. Take this woman.
To do that and to make sure that the Houses of Parliament and London as a whole could go about its business.
I'd like to see her CV. Often, public bodies have to justify why there are not more women in senior positions, but we should actually be asking why there are any at all. Considering that policemen face far greater danger in their work and don't have the option of maternity leave, how can we be sure she's in place due to merit? Why can we recognise discrimination everywhere, except against men?
A man's world in many ways. I know there are many female firefighters now, a lot more than there were, but they're still the minority, very much so.
Yes, and I think, you know, especially having met, you know, women in the fire service as well, I mean, that they are tough and they do have to hold their own.
No, for sure.
I suspect that if we removed all men from firefighting, if we replaced everyone in the service with females, if we even painted fire trucks pink, women would still complain how difficult it was for women in a male-dominated profession. "343 firefighters were killed in the World Trade Center on September 11th, 2001. Every single one of them was a man. Where were all the women attached to the fire stations in New York? What excuse did the women find for not going into the Twin Towers? How many female firefighters were on maternity leave whilst these men died? This woman on the game show Fort Boyard is a firefighter.
I hope they've taught you how to knock down doors.
Definitely.
In you go.
Oh no, Jane. This is tough.
As high as you can. As high as you can. As high as you can.
Take a bigger run up. She's a hard lady.
Come on, Jane. Remember the elbow. Big run as fast as you can. And high. High. High.
So close.
As fast as you can. Well done.
Yeah, go. Oh. Jane, come out. Come out. Jane, that was such a great effort. Yeah, I think just 2 more throws and you would have been there, but that's tough for you.
A man with no firefighter training has no trouble with the same task.
It's a bit of an ouchy one, I think. Be aiming higher, that's it. You got it! It's on the floor. Okay, brilliant. He's got the key. Come out. Yeah, okay, fab. Brilliant, well done.
A woman can actually fail the physical component of the fireman test and still become a firewoman to meet female quotas. Firewomen are paid exactly the same as firemen, who are more physically able and better suited to the job. This is wrong, and a very substantial pay gap should exist in the fire service, and also other services. That's right, you heard it here first. Male soldiers, male police officers, and male firefighters should be paid more than women. This is not about being unfair to women, it's about being fair to men, and recognising their greater efforts, their greater abilities, and their greater risks. This is a recurrent theme when we look at equality. Women want equal rights to do a job and equal benefits, but they also want lower standards of entry and less risk. And we let this happen.
One of the main changes that has to come is that if we want to talk about any form of emancipation, liberation, equality for women, then there has to be equality of responsibility.
By politicising essential do-or-die services, we truly show the Pyrrhic victory of feminism. Men's lives are at risk. The lives of the public are at risk. And why?
She's not becoming a firefighter.
It's what she wants.